There's this really strange truth about greatness. We usually assume that if someone is simply talented enough, hardworking enough, and successful enough, the world will automatically just make space for them. But history actually tells a very different story. Sometimes the absolute most gifted person in the room becomes the most misunderstood, and the one producing the most extraordinary results still struggles to belong. So today, in this explainer, we're looking at one of the greatest football players on earth to understand a dynamic that applies to almost every high-performing environment. We all grow up believing this kind of dangerous idea, right? That world-class talent and hard work basically guarantee a seamless fit. We think, hey, if you just deliver the results and outwork literally everyone around you, acceptance is naturally going to follow. But what we're calling the Mbappé paradox shows us that at the absolute highest levels of any field, simply being the best isn't always enough to make things work smoothly. Because there's a stark contrast here between what we believe and reality. Down at average levels, sure, skill completely dominates. If you out-hustle the person next to you, you advance. That's a given. But as you move into truly elite environments, the really complex machinery of the top tier, this fascinating shift happens. Fit actually begins competing with skill. It stops being just about how good you are and starts being about how your specific brand of greatness interacts with the environment around you. To really wrap our heads around this, we're going to trace Kylian Mbappe's career through three distinct eras. AS Monaco, which was his incubator, Paris Saint-Germain, where he essentially became the center of gravity, and finally, Real Madrid, the ultimate institutional brick wall. Tracking this journey is going to uncover that underlying tension between raw brilliance and systemic integration. Now, before we break those eras down, let's just look at the pure data for a second. The constant goals, the falling records, the arriving trophies. His performance has been undeniably extraordinary at every single stop. If this were just a math equation, well, there'd be absolutely nothing to discuss. The output is and always has been elite. But honestly, here is the million-dollar question. If football were only about numbers, why do the exact same questions keep returning? Across totally different teams and different environments, questions about friction, leadership, sacrifice, and belonging just keep bubbling up to the surface. When a pattern repeats like that across multiple environments, it's a massive signal to us that we need to pay attention to something way beyond the statistics. So let's start with stage one, the incubator, AS Monaco FC. Back at Monaco, his raw talent was, absolutely undeniable. But the system did something brilliant. It acted as an incubator. It amplified his strengths while quietly hiding his weaknesses. Senior players provided the structure, and the team gave him the freedom to just play. He wasn't asked to carry the institution carried him. And this illustrates a core truth about early talent. In the beginning, potential needs protection, not pressure. Even absolute greatness needs scaffolding to grow properly. Moving on to stage two, the orbit, at Paris Saint-Germain FC. With his move to Paris, there was this subtle but honestly massive shift. The talent no longer existed quietly inside the system. Instead, he became the absolute focal point. He was the face of the franchise, the key to its future, the whole shebang. And while the results exploded in terms of goals and superstar status, it complicated things. When an entire organization bends to accommodate one extraordinary individual, invisible tension really starts building beneath the surface. And that brings up some pretty dangerous unspoken questions, like when the collective revolves entirely around one person. Who adapts? Who sacrifices their preferred role? Who carries the hidden burden of making sure the system actually still functions? Success kind of tricks us into thinking strengths alone are enough, but the skills that get you to the top are really the exact same skills that keep you there without friction. Which brings us to stage three, the brick wall, Real Madrid. This brings us to the hardest challenge of all. Real Madrid is an institution that is famously larger than any single player. It's the ultimate brick wall for superstars. Now, Mbappé didn't fail to deliver elite numbers when he arrived. He did what he always does. He delivered. But an institution like this evaluates something much deeper. The history of the club whispers one golden rule. No one, absolutely no one, is bigger than the system itself. See, they ask entirely different questions here. Does the system become stronger or just more dependent? Tactical overlaps start to emerge, specific roles have to be sacrificed, and those invisible workloads shift across the field. Suddenly, the conversation completely stops being about his raw talent and becomes entirely about his integration. Let's pivot slightly to the broader application, the hidden dynamics of work. Let's step back for a second, because you absolutely do not need to be a massive football fan to recognize this pattern. This exact same dynamic plays out in offices, startups, and boardrooms everywhere. It's the genius engineer whose code is flawless but who absolutely refuses to document anything. Or the star sales rep bringing in massive accounts who just ignores company policy. They deliver undeniable output, for sure, but structurally, they bend the systems around them and create friction. This introduces what we call the hidden tax of brilliance. Basically, high performers often create this invisible tax where someone else has to compensate. A coworker works harder in silence to make room for that star's specific way of doing things. And left unchecked, that silent tax quietly turns admiration into resentment. Now, it's super important to understand, this doesn't mean the star is just being inherently selfish, nor does it mean the system is being unfair to them. It simply means that alignment has broken down. It teaches us one of adulthood's hardest professional lessons. Being exceptional at what you do is absolutely not the same thing as being easy to integrate into a team. So that leads us to our final section, the art of belonging. Because, look, you can only ride purely on talent for so long. Every elite performer eventually faces a choice. The hardest question isn't whether someone is talented. That part is usually glaringly obvious. The way harder question is whether they'll spend their entire career asking the system to adapt to them, or if they are willing to step up and learn how to evolve inside the system. Elite systems, they rarely bend forever. The people who actually last at the absolute peak of their professions learn something much deeper than just high performance. They master the deep skills of survival. Timing, humility, knowing when to sacrifice their own spotlight, and the real art of adaptation. We can actually look all the way back to ancient Stoic wisdom to summarize this perfectly. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What injures the hive, injures the bee." It's such a powerful reminder that even absolute, generational greatness cannot survive if it becomes permanently disconnected from the collective. The health of the whole ultimately dictates the success of the individual. Ultimately, brilliance and raw talent, yeah, they might get you noticed. They get you the initial meeting, the big contract, or the starting spot. But learning how to elevate the system rather than just extracting from it, well, that is literally the only thing that lets you stay. So look at your own work and ask yourself, are you just relying on being exceptional, or are you doing the really hard work of learning how to belong?